Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm ready to do my full review on this guy. So this is the Spyderco Endela, and this Endela is a little bit special because it is the K390 version. So I'm not an expert on the Japanese Spydercos. I'm not an expert on backlock Spydercos because in general, I don't really like backlocks all that much, but this one has impressed me a pretty good amount. In general, the FRN handled backlock knives from Spyderco, to me, feel more like the type of knife that I would keep in a tackle box or tucked away in a hiking pack in case of emergency or in a first aid kit somewhere. Like, they seem like knives that I'd put in a pouch of some kind or a kit of some kind to serve a very specific purpose. They are not the type of knives that I like to put in my pocket and carry. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is I think backlocks are a bore to play with. I like knives that have a fun action, and I have not yet found a backlock that I would say, for my preferences, is fun to play with. I think they're all kind of a bummer to open and close. The only good thing I find about opening or closing them is that when opening, you get a very tactile, like, snap when it locks up, and that can feel good. But other than that, I mean, it's just, I'll take a frame lock, I'll take a compression lock, I'll take an axis lock, I'll take a button lock, I'll take a liner lock, so many other locks before I'll take a back lock. Are backlocks really strong? Absolutely. There's a reason why they exist, and I think the utility of them is hard to argue against. They make sense to use on tools. But knives, for me, at this point, are more than just tools. They're my hobby. I have fun with them. I enjoy them. I like their intricacies, and these don't excite me. So all of that said, this one has impressed me a pretty fair amount. There are some advantages to using these materials. Number one on using the FRN is it makes it a pretty light knife, and they're able to keep it quite slim. This is a really slim profile. I imagine, I don't have one here, but it's probably the same thickness, roughly, as like a Delica or an Endura, like that whole family of knives. I'm pretty sure this fits right within that family. But the Endela Ergos, to me, feel kind of special, and the fact that this one's in K390 makes me like it a lot more than I would otherwise, and it's been kind of interesting. So I've carried this one a couple of times. It was loaned to me, I should say, as well, by my buddy Blake, who also loaned me the Spyderco GB1 so that I could review it. I'm not going to link to Blake below because he doesn't make knife content, doesn't want to, but I will link to the Millie PM2 Para3 club because that's where I met Blake, and he's a really cool dude, and I'm a moderator in that club now, and it's the best club on Facebook. Shameless plug. So he loaned this to me, and I've made a point to carry it a handful of times and to use it a little bit. I haven't used this knife hard, if I'm being honest, but I've used it enough to kind of feel how the blade seems to perform, put it through a little bit of cardboard. I've opened a few boxes with it. I did cut a little bit of paracord with it as well. The other day, my daughter wanted some for a project she was working on, art or something, and so I cut a few little pieces of paracord for her, and this happened to be what was in pocket when I did it. And so I've felt it out a decent bit, and I've been impressed with the performance of it. But I'm also not really surprised by the performance of it, because with all of everything I've already said, this knife to me feels like a knife that works really well to be a tool. Like, if this knife lived full-time in my hiking day pack, as a backup folder, if you will, it weighs hardly anything, it's very slim. K390 is a phenomenal steel, similar in terms of performance metrics to steels like CPM 10V. This would be a great like tool knife to keep tucked away somewhere. And so the fact that when I do pull it out of my pocket and use it a little bit, that it feels ultra capable makes sense to me. It's also a really kind of well thought out design for a tool knife. Like, the Ergos are really comfortable for me. They're kind of no nonsense. Got a nice Spyderco thumb ramp with fine jimping. My fingers know right where to go. Everything is comfortable. The edges of the plastic are all rounded really well, so it feels nice in hand. I've also got texture on the sides of the scales that is really kind of locking me in where my fingertips grab onto it. The spot where the clip lands happens to be a spot that isn't super textured, so going in and out of pocket is fine. The clip itself is comfortable in my hand. It's not a hot spot. So I lock into this knife well, and I index on it. And then you get to the blade, and it's a nice thin, slicey blade stock with a full flat grind. So it slices really, really well. Thickness behind the edge, quite thin. The edge that's on it, very, very sharp. So like, it is an excellent blade paired with an excellent handle for actual use. That's the reality of this knife. Like if anyone asked me if this was a good knife for like if they work a job where they're constantly like processing a bunch of cardboard and cutting heavy zip ties and plastic wrap and all kinds of stuff, like yeah, this is a phenomenal steel with a great blade profile to use as a tool. But it's just where it falls short for me is that it's a backlock and the plastic feels cheap. Like, I don't think there's really a way around that for me. Plastic, in my mind, does not mean nice or fancy or expensive. It means cheap. Plastic components on things feel less nice than titanium or micarta or carbon fiber or even G10. Like, it feels cheaper to me. In my hand, this does not feel nice, but it works. It works quite well. So, I don't know. Like, I like this knife a lot within a category, if that makes sense. And if the category is tool that works, then I get it. And to some people, that's all they look for in a knife to put in their pocket. Is it a tool that works for the jobs that they do with it? And that's a totally fair way to look at a knife to put in your pocket. It's probably more intelligent than the way that I look at it, where it's like for fun at this point, right? I do require that the knives that I carry are capable cutting tools, and I do cut things with them a lot. I'm not like a soft user on my knives, but to some people, they couldn't care less whether it's drop shutty or fun to deploy or any of that. Like, they are going to pull this knife out of their pocket. They don't care whether it's deep carry. They want to grab it by the screws right here. They want to pull it out. They want to slow roll this blade to the open position. They want to make the cut they got to make. They want to go ahead and use both hands to close it, both hands to put it in their pocket, and then that's why they have a knife on them, is to do that process. They want to cut the thing, they want to put it away. They're not getting it out and middle finger flicking it 100 times in a row while they're watching a movie. They're not fidgeting with it over and over and over. Like, and that's fair. Not everybody needs to use their knives the way that I like to use mine. So I think if you're looking at knives kind of as the tool user, not as the for fun user, then this makes phenomenal sense. Especially the fact that you can get K390 on it. Like, it's a bonkers good steel. It puts to shame so many other steels that are so much more prevalent. And so by getting it on a knife like this, that is a plastic backlock, that's relatively lackluster, you're getting an insane amount of performance for the amount of money that these cost. I think these are a little over $100, and getting a good cutting blade attached to a nice handle that works in K390, like, for a little over $100, if I'm right about the price. I didn't buy this, it was loaned to me, but that makes a lot of sense to me, you know? And the couple of knives that I have similar to this, I guess it's really only two. I have my H1 steel Spyderco Salt 2, which is basically a Delica that's built to be waterproof. That knife lives in a tackle box. If I go fishing, that's the knife that's coming with me. It makes sense. It's a tool for fishing, just like the pair of pliers that lives in there as well for pulling hooks out. Like, that is a part of the toolkit for that. And then the Dragonfly, the glow-in-the-dark one that I have from Jeff over at Cutlery Shop, that knife is going to be my daughter's. It still kind of lives in my case for now. But the way that I found that knife really makes sense to me is as like an extra little knife to throw in my fanny pack or whatever. And then that's the kind of knife that if I'm at the post office or whatever and I don't want to pull out a scary looking knife, I can pull out that tiny little thing that weighs nothing and is easy to toss anywhere into any pocket and just pull out and make little simple cuts with and be done. This is more like a primary knife. And so for me, this will not go in my primary knife pocket if I'm not reviewing it. Every time I carried it, it was because I was working on gathering my thoughts to do this review. After I'm done, it will be way more exciting knives again that have fun actions, are made with materials that I like, and will still cut well. Will still be made of really cool steels, but they're also generally a lot more expensive than this, you know, like, so I just don't have the need or the desire for a knife like this at this point in my knife collecting, because I have an embarrassment of riches in my knife collection. I have way too many very fun, very exciting knives, and this just doesn't excite me at all. The steel excites me, but I could also have this same steel on a Para3 or a PM2. And the only reason I don't is because I already have a Para3 and Maximet and several PM2s and Maximet 10V and 204P. So like, I don't need another PM2 and K390 or a Para3. Like, if I had one, I might carry it every now and then. I'd carry it before I'd carry this because I can play with them. They're fun. I like the way they work. They still fit great in my hand. But those are more expensive than this is. And some people might not like the compression lock. They might not like the Ergos of the PM2 or Para3. They might like how slim this is. So I get it. I feel like I'm talking in circles a little bit. So I'm going to wrap this up and just say that this is a great tool knife. That it makes sense to me. It's not my speed, not my style, but I get it. And also, these Japanese-made Spydercos are put together really well. For being plastic, they feel like I feel way more confident in them than I thought that I would before I ever handled one of these FRN knives from Spyderco. They have a way of making them still feel pretty solid, and it makes sense. It does have full liners inside too, so that's probably got something to do with it. But yeah, I like this knife. So again, the Millie Club will be linked down below. Thank you, Blake, for loaning this to me. I appreciate it, buddy. And I'll see all of you guys on the next one.